Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Patchway. And in today's video I'll be trying out this Mazda RX-8. This car was kindly lent to me by its owner, and this is also the first time I'm trying out a vehicle with this particular type of engine, which I'll get to later on. So a quick overview: the Mazda RX-8 was launched in 2003 and was in production up until 2012. It replaced the old FD RX-7, which was Mazda's two-seat halo car, to compete with Porsche, specifically the 924, the 944 and the 968, depending on which generation we're talking about. And the RX-7 has gained quite a cult following, namely on what's found underneath the bonnet. This RX-8, however, when new, was not aimed towards Porsches, but rather the Audi TT. As a result, the old RX-7 was £35,000, this was £23,000. Unlike the old RX-7, this car also technically has 4 doors and 4 seats, which again we'll get back to later on. The RX-8 then got a facelift around 2008, which gave it the more aggressive looking front end, a little wing on the back, and revised tail lights. And overall I think it links it better to the old RX-7 in terms of design. However, this is actually less powerful than the old RX-7. The old RX-7 was around 276, which is actually a gentleman's agreement with Japanese car manufacturers. Maybe closer to 300 in some cases, whereas this one only makes do with 240 PS. That's 240 PS in this manual option. However, if you get an automatic, it then drops down to about 212. And then the RX-8 ceased production in 2012, putting an end to this particular engine configuration. Ever since the demise of the RX-8, Mazda have been constantly promising that they'll make another sports car with this same engine. Well, they sort of did with the Mazda MX-30 REV, which is an electric vehicle with a petrol range extender. Once again, we'll get back to the engine later on. So here is the front of the Mazda RX-8. This particular one is a pre-facelift, and generally speaking I think this design has aged very well. If I had to be pedantic, maybe the placement of the number plate does sort of get in the way of the front mouth. Mazda at this period were known for having their smiley bumpers, and of course this was a time when front fog lights were on almost every single car. And I've got to say, this blue paint does stand out very well once the sun shines. That's a design identity found all around the car, which again we'll come back to later on. It actually links to the engine. Coming to the side, you do get some very nice 5-spoke wheels. This particular one has yellow calipers, and whilst it's a coupe, it's technically a 4-door car. Well, more like 2+2, judging by how tiny the back ones are. And overall I think the silhouette looks really, really nice. Coming to the back, the rear window actually wraps around where you'd expect the C-pillars to go, which I actually quite like the look of. This car also has a lip spoiler, which I think finishes off the rear very well. And you also got these period correct Lexus style or Altezza style tail lights, where most of the tail light is actually transparent and only the bits that illuminate red are red. Of course this particular one is tinted, but overall you can still see the design. Coming to the back, you do get these twin exit tailpipes, which I like the look of. Once again, the rear fog light is in that rounded triangle design. And here's the space in the boot. Very, very generous for a coupe. Of course, being a saloon boot, the opening is a bit narrow. If I had to be pedantic, they could have at least turned it into a hatchback. But the boot space itself, again, very, very cavernous. and even the floor extends a little further down in the center. Since this car is a rotary engine, over here is the owner's engine oil on the center, and on the left is what the owner puts in every time he fuels up, and the bottle on the right is how much of that lubricant he puts in. Before we get inside, let's just quickly talk about the engine. So here is the engine, which Mazda labels as a Renesis multi-side port. It's a naturally aspirated 1.3. What's special about this engine is that it does not have any pistons. Instead, this 1.3 litre naturally aspirated engine is a Wankel rotary. That's Wankel, W-A-N-K-E-L. So instead of having a piston that goes up and down the combustion chamber, instead you get this rounded triangle which spins in the center and has basically 3 combustion chambers per rotor. This particular one has 2 rotors, so it may be a 1.3 naturally aspirated, but it churns out 240 PS. While that sounds very generous, the reason these engines have not really caught on is due to how frequently you have to fill up oil and how much they drink given their performance and engine capacity. And I've been talking about the design of the Wankel rotor, which looks like a rounded triangle, often nicknamed as a Dorito. We can actually see that design here on the engine top, once again here on the bonnet, and of course the rear fog light. Now coming to the back, yes, this has a back door, but no back door handle. So to do that, you have to open the front door and then pull this tab here, which opens the rear door. Interestingly, the seat belt for the front seat is mounted on here as well. And because the B-pillar is mounted onto the back door, here's what the side profile looks like with both doors open. And interestingly, the RX-8 kick plate is smack bang in the middle as well. One notable drawback about these back doors is, in order to close the front door, you have to close the back door first, as it's designed to hold the back door here. But again, considering this is a coupe, it's pedantic. Also, similar to 3-door hatchbacks of the 90s, you get pop-out rear glass. Kind of look like wings sticking out. And because this car has back seats, I'm gonna see if I can fit in the back. And I actually can. Though, if I had to be pedantic, the front seat is actually moved far forwards, and I can't stretch very well like I'm in the back of a C-Class. Realistically, my leg space will be fairly limited. But considering this is a coupe, I think this is a brilliant solution, and I think more and more coupe manufacturers should go for this system. In fact, the seats also have some really good bolsters. So coming to the back, it's actually fairly spacious for a coupe. If I just close the door for a more accurate representation, there we go. Headroom is generous. Here's what my knee room and leg room looks like, but realistically the seats would be here. You do get 2 cup holders in the center console, and well, a center console cubby here which opens towards the driver, but somehow the passengers at the back can also reach out for them. And I also like the designs of these rear seats as well. There's also another GoPro here, basically storage for the rear passengers, and you also got a little pass-through in the back, which looks like this. And to get out, the front door has to be open, but simply you just pull on this and away we go. Coming to the business end now, and I'm glad to say that the interior looks as good as the exterior. So firstly, let's talk about the door card. Yes, it's a little bit on the plasticky side, but again, this is fine for a Mazda of this period. This car also has a little bit of black piano. They were very popular at the time, and while they do look nice in the showroom, they can get a bit tricky to keep clean. This particular car also has the metal pedals and a metal footrest. And being a Japanese car, the door lock is integrated to the door handle with a little red symbol to tell you that it's unlocked. And the door handle kind of looks like a katana. Now coming inside, due to the nature of this dark interior, it does feel a little gloomy, but you can option out a red interior as well if you want. And the steering wheel is showing a little bit of wear, but again, you do have a nice material on the rim. So coming to point of view, this is what the Mazda steering wheel looks like. You also get 3 dials, and of course, being a rotary engine, the engine revs to 9,000 RPM. And I do like the red needles, which add a sporty flair to it as well. This particular car has the 6-speed manual, thankfully. The automatic unfortunately robs some performance from this car. And of course the top of the gear selector resembles a rotor, which can also be found on the cutouts of the headrests. The handbrake looks like this, which is fine on this right-hand drive example, but in left-hand drive examples, the handbrake is still on this side of the car, which can be a little inconvenient. This RX-8 even has seat heaters for the front, and here's what the center console looks like from the driver's seat. You can actually slide this back, or you can open it like this. The seats are also wrapped in leather, which do feel very nice. They aren't the Nappa leather that you get in premium cars, but to even have the standard leather in a Mazda is very, very generous. You even get a dampened glove box, which is a little small, but for this kind of car, it's acceptable. Now, not only is there a rotor design theme in the interior, but there's also a circle design theme. So of course you've got the 2 dials here, but the center section for your HVAC controls is also a circle. You even have a circular trim on the center console. You get circular air vents, you get circular tweeters, which are bows in this particular car. And you also get a circle on the steering wheel boss. Well, 2 if you include the inside one as well. And of course the aforementioned circular instrument cluster. Not only do you get a circular volume dial, which obviously most cars do, you also get a steering wheel mounted volume control. Not that many cars had that feature when this car was originally conceived. Interestingly, the MX-5 that I reviewed has the exact same indicator stalks as well. Bearing in mind that ND MX-5 was launched in 2014. This particular car has an aftermarket rear view camera, and interestingly, the sun visors, obviously you have the vanity mirror with the light, but you also get cutouts on the visor itself, which ends up letting in a little bit of light through. This particular car has a sun strip fitted, so that prevents that from happening. And of course, you got somewhere to store your sunglasses. And one last thing to mention, you got your stability control off, that's your blank switch, and in here is a place to store your coins. So that's the exterior and interior done now, so let's see what this car is like to drive. Seatbelt on. They're a little lazy to retract, but there we go. And start the engine. One distinct thing about the rotary engine is the sound, which sounds like this. So window back up, and off we go. The visibility, generally speaking, is very, very good. And exit the car park. Few undulations on the road. One distinct thing about the RX is that it does make a very nice engine noise, which I've already mentioned. And luckily, there's not too much muting in this interior. Once again, the manual is very, very smooth. Very odd junction here. Like I said, it does feel a little gloomy with this color option, but luckily the headlining is light to help with that. In stop-start traffic it does feel a little jerky, and the speedo in this car is digital only, which if I'm honest I don't really mind at all. I actually prefer it like that. Makes the whole interface look a bit more exotic. First gear when setting off can feel jerky, as I mentioned, but second gear does help smoothen that up. Just like on the MX-5, the gear selector does vibrate. Off we go. Oh, nothing but stop-start traffic. The mirrors do look a bit odd. The shape of them, they curve upwards, so maneuvering about can be a little bit on the tricky side. So in stop-start traffic, I would say this car does do very well. Once you get used to the pedals, they are quite close together, but I'm guessing they did that to help heel toe. But if you're wearing Air 270s like I am, they can get a bit tricky, especially when the footrest in this right-hand drive example cuts off at the bottom. Interestingly, this particular car comes with an oil gauge as well. At least here in the patchway area, it's very easy to maneuver this car. Though I can say the clutch might feel a bit too heavy for some people. I personally can tolerate it. I'm guessing due to minimal sound deadening, it's very easy to hear the engine. When the gear selector vibrates, luckily the rest of the center console doesn't. Once you put your foot down, it does feel very fun. Luckily, being a manual car, you don't have to put it into a separate dynamic mode for that. The armrest is very generous. Once again, it's very, very jerky on first gear. Accelerator can feel a little twitchy even on the higher gears. And we're into a 50 zone. And we're at another red light. Even at 6,000 revs, it screams. But luckily the car does rev freely. Dropping down to second. There was a little pop there when I shifted to third. 3,500 RPM. Trouble is, it's far too busy here in Cribbs Causeway that I can't really take it to the full 9,000. Well, one last place to check is what it's like in the venue car park. Speed bump. Another speed bump. Let's at low speeds, and this car can handle them very well. And here comes a very tight, oblique right-hander. Off we go. Luckily there was no body roll. And over the speed bump. Yep, perfectly manageable. Oh, well, it's a little bit emptier now, so. Nope, that's 7,000 again. Yeah. This car does like to rev out, there's just not enough space for me to rev it all the way to 9,000. One more time. Nope, that was only 6. So yeah, couldn't get it to 9,000. 7.5 was my highest. So let's take this car back to the car park and finalize this video. Oh, even this RX-8 does that very funny beep. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me try out this Mazda RX-8. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.